Hey, everybody, and welcome to As the World Works. I'm your host, Sam Williamson, and today I have a very special guest, Chris Westfall. You can go to westfallonline.com to check out more about him, but I got to tell you, this guy has been a friend of mine for a very long time. We'll get into our history here in a little bit. Just a little bit about him is he's a Forbes contributor and business coach. He's the author of best-selling Leadership Language, The New Elevator Pitch, Bulletproof Branding, and interestingly enough, under Leadership Language, the subtitle is Using Authentic Communication to Help Drive Results. So we're all selling ourselves in some capacity. It's either a soft sell or a hard sell. But in some subtle context, is a product or service or just yourself, you're selling yourself. And if your story isn't authentic, people pick up on that. And so Chris is an expert in helping people find their true voice and become an inspiration to others. So without further ado, oh, by the way, Chris is also the national elevator pitch champion. Chris Westfall, everybody.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you for that introduction. I really appreciate it. We have known each other for quite some time, and I appreciate you having me on. It's great to have a chance to chat with you again.
My pleasure, brother. It's so good to have you, and so good to see you looking healthy, looking well.
Trying to do what I can, trying to keep moving in the middle of the quarantine lockdown kind of thing. But yeah, I would say overall that I'm doing pretty good. And thank you again for that introduction. I mean, I think that even though we're still, for a lot of us, in isolation, there's more of a need than ever before for connection and exactly what you were saying, that authentic connection, because nobody wants to feel like they're being sold something, and yet at the same time, we all know that we've got solutions that we need to offer in some way. And how do you do that in a way that's not off-putting, but in a way that's welcoming, in a way that makes people say, "Wow, that's interesting. Tell me more."
That's it right there. Tell me more. And so how do you teach someone leadership, and how do you teach someone to be an inspiration?
This is going to sound like a crazy answer, but the best way to teach someone anything is to point them towards what they already know. And so, I mean, when we think about teaching, you think, well, you're going to share something that nobody's Googled before, that you're going to access some insight that people haven't seen before. But insight really comes from inside. And if you want people to see things in a new way and to really learn something, they have to learn it on their own terms. And so much of my teaching, I don't think of it as teaching. I mean, it's more like coaching. But when I'm working with individuals or even with companies, it's about pointing them back towards their experience rather than quoting statistics and expecting people to remember them for some test. It's about what is it that you know? What is it that works for you to help you to play whatever game you're playing in the game of life? Because the way Sam, here's the way I look at it. It's like this. If you know all the rules of boxing, okay, that's not going to help you when you're about to get punched in the face. You see what I'm saying? It's like if you know that a football field is 53 1/3 yards wide, that's not going to help you when somebody's getting ready to tackle you, and you got to we have to make decisions every day, and especially in times like these when we've got a very unprecedented circumstance with this global pandemic right now. People are being asked to figure things out in new ways, and that means figuring out the leadership conversation. The thing that I try to share as best I can is that leadership, it's not something that's out there. It's not something that's reserved for others, for military leaders or for captains of industry. Leadership is something that we all have access to, but in order to find it, we have to look inside ourselves. That's where leadership, that's where connection, that's where authenticity comes from.
Well, it's interesting. Part of your story is coaching folks who are getting on or candidates for Shark Tank.
Yeah.
So when they're selling a product or pitching a product, I think you really got to believe in it and know it more than anything in the world, right?
Yeah, but it's easy. It's easy to fall into the trap that if you know your business backwards and forwards, that's the key to success. Because sometimes what that can create, and you've probably seen this, it can create tunnel vision, right? Or entrepreneuritis, as I like to call it, right? Where you fall so deeply in love with your own business that
Mm.
you can't see the business that really matters, which is the business of your client. And it's the same thing when you're talking to investors. I mean, over the years, I've helped clients to land on Shark Tank, Dragon's Den in Canada, Shark Tank Australia, and Sam. So far, I've been a part of raising over $100 million in capital investment for new business ventures, which is not all the money in the world, but I've been able to help launch, I would say, probably over 6 businesses with communication strategies related to how do you pitch in a way that's convincing. And for me, that convincing pitch, you're right, you have to convince yourself first of all, right? If you want to convince others, you have to see the value. But that value, whatever it is that you're talking about, whether it's a new invention or it's a class A office space in a downtown district, you have to be able to phrase your solution in terms of your listener, in terms of your audience. And it's always about what your audience sees, realizes, and envisions, not what you've worked so hard to create for yourself in your own business or in your own career.
That's a
That's
good point, because I see those guys get shot down by real investors, the Mark Cubans and everybody on the panel,
yeah.
by coming at all these different directions that you can see deer in the headlights, right? I haven't thought this far beyond, my own widget. So the title of this series, this show, is As the World Works. And we've talked to several different people in different facets of commercial real estate, from developers to brokers to designers. And I think space in general, and I know you've had conversations like you just suggested with coaching in coaching clients of yours and on as a keynote speaker and influencer about the world and the work that we're doing, right? So As the World Works is taking a little bit different spin on the world from the vantage point of the importance of seizing every opportunity, because every person that's involved with that company is that brand. So, for example, in being the national elevator pitch champ, the idea is you only have a couple of minutes to tell your story. And everybody within the organization is kind of a target for that touch point, right? To have that opportunity to say, who do you work for? What do you guys do? Or who are you? Who are you being? And you've got like, okay, how do I summarize this in a minute, right? Give me 5 minutes and I'll flip you my email. You can read all about us. That's kind of a push off, right? I wanted to say that because Chris and I met 20 plus years ago, maybe no, longer than that, probably 30 years ago, maybe. When we were 10.
Yes, exactly. I know I had just started shaving when we met. Thank you. This is you can kind of see there's some balloons back here behind me. My daughter got in here and decorated my office for me today. So
lots of pictures of your faces all the way around in hidden places. I saw on your Facebook post.
Yeah, my daughter found this picture of me. And it is not the most flattering. I don't know if you can see it or not.
Yes.
But, and she took that and put it all over my office. So there's anyway, a little decoration that I'm working through.
So so Chris and I met a long time ago. We both met in the entertainment industry as actors, film, TV, hosting, voiceover. Always crossed paths, always ran parallel lives. And it's interesting about 2 minutes that you get to tell your story or to convince somebody that you're right for the part.
Indeed.
Did that 15 seconds that we had in auditions expand to 2 minutes? Did that help you formulate your uh, your message that quickly?
I think everything you do in life, you're auditioning.
Mm,
In my opinion. I mean, and that's a kind of a variation of all the world's a stage. But it's true. And I think it's true now more than ever. People, they want to know, who are you? What are you about? Like you were saying, what are you on about right now? And certainly that's true when you go in to audition for something. But when you're meeting someone, you're looking in the direction of service. In some way, and that service, hopefully, if it's successful, it ends in a transaction of some kind, or perhaps just a deeper relationship and a deeper partnership. But when you look in the direction of service, what shows up for me, and what showed up for me in that career, and what shows up for me in this one, is being able to focus on what it is that that your audience is interested in. Which is not to say that you become a chameleon or try to constantly try to second guess, what do people want and how can I be that, but to start the conversation where your audience is a counterintuitive place, I think, for a lot of people, because a lot of folks that I work with, they come in with projects, products, and egos that are important, and they want to focus on those things, and they want to express those things. And I don't disagree with that sentiment, but really, if you aren't expressing yourself and your value proposition in terms of what it means to others, it's like this. If I say it, but you don't see it, it doesn't exist. And it's the same kind of thing. And you can say, well, wait a minute, there absolutely it does exist. There's 10,000 square feet of space on that fourth floor right there. Yeah, but if your client doesn't want to see it, you know what I'm saying?
and then
So
you have to take the baton and create the vision or expand on their vision, but it starts with listening.
it does. It does. And that's the thing that I think is missing for so many leaders today, is the ability to really hear what's being said. Sam, it's kind of interesting. I just finished writing a book for Wiley, and it's not going to be my name on the masthead. I'm a ghostwriter for it. But the book is all about customer service, customer listening, and creating customer success by listening more effectively. So the title of the book, Listen Up, is the title of it. And it's written by a good friend of mine. Her name's Karen Manja. I say it's written by her. I'm her ghostwriter. It's a weird kind of relationship, but she is terrific. And that book is coming out in October. So I've got that's in the chute. But obviously, having just written a book called Listen Up, and I talk about it in my own book, Leadership Language, people want to be heard. And right now, in this time, if you want to say something that's really compelling, if you want to capture somebody's imagination, say these 3 words: I hear you. And don't just say it like you're repeating what Chris Westfall told you to say, but say it like you mean it. Say it like you mean it. And then you have to practice 5-finger management. I don't know if you're familiar with this tactic, Sam, but it's like
But I
this.
hear you.
Yeah, you take, I like your style. You take 5 fingers like this, and you go like this. And that's 5-finger management. So when you say, I hear you, listen, tune in. Why? Because the customer will tell you everything you need to know. And you may think, well, I'm just, I'm in a conversation. I'm not necessarily talking to a customer. But one of the things that I put forward in my book is, what if you start thinking about the folks around you as your client, your customer? And a client is anyone upon whom your success depends. You see what I'm saying? Like, if we are successful, we stand on the shoulders of others. We are successful, you and I, because of others that have gone before us. We see that. And our success depends on the people that are around us right now. Treat them like your client.
Do you remember director Gordon Willis Jr.?
That sounds familiar.
One of the greatest commercial directors I've ever worked with. This was back when Chris Nicolau was casting.
Yeah.
Back early in the days. Mm-hmm. And he gave me his secret sauce on directing. which was when he creates a storyboard and he's pitching work, everything he has learned and heard from his prospective client is exactly what they said. And everybody else sort of comes in with their own vision and their own ideas. And he just says, this is what I heard you say. And it's exactly what they said. Verbatim. And they said yes.
Sure.
So he was a great listener.
Yeah.
And won a lot because from that. And he was a joy to work with. He was one of those guys, is one of those guys that you could tell he picked people to work with and work around talent and production that you just want to sit around a campfire with.
Yeah.
And there was no sort of BS. It was just, let's get real and have a good time. Because that's what the client expects. So he set the tone for that. And it started with, I'm just going to take the direction and then direct from there.
Wow.
So, when did you know that I know that, so you graduated in theater,
Yeah.
right?
My background. Yeah.
Your background's in theater. And then you got your master's from TCU.
That's right.
And your MBA in business. And then you got into sales. And then the world opened up and you said, let me think about this. So how did that, what lit your fire to get back on stage?
When I was working in sales and even sales management, but really when I was in sales, I found myself, I don't know if you ever had this experience, but I found myself selling stuff that I had really no business selling. I mean, I don't mean to say I had no business selling it, but like I would come out of a deal and I'd be like, how did I do that? You know what I mean? I mean, it's like, what just happened? I'm just, kind of living my life trying to figure things out and sort through my own insecurities. And then all of a sudden, boom, here's this multi-million-dollar deal. And I'm like, whoa. And I thought to myself, I don't know that it was so much an impulse to get back on stage, but it was to try to figure out a way to share what I discovered. Cause I said, I'm going to reverse engineer this. I've got to look at what it is that I'm doing and what it is that other people are doing too. I mean, it's not just, my work isn't just based on my own experience. But I said, I really want to become a student of success and share that story. And that was really where the impulse was. It wasn't craving the spotlight as much as it was saying, what's the vehicle for me to reach people with this message? And it kind of turned some lights on, some things that life turned those lights on for me. Can I share it with others? So that's kind of how it started, Sam.
I see you as the same person on one-on-one videos like this, video chats, or teaching at the or Texas A&M students on elevator pitching and their competitions, or on a broad stage with thousands of people as a keynote speaker. You're the same guy. So props to you for staying true to who you are.
Well,
and
thanks.
It comes across in your words too. Your writing's great. The first book I read was The New Elevator Pitch, and Bulletproof Branding was amazing too. I haven't read Leadership Language. You were supposed to send me a copy, I think.
Wait, we're gonna get that remedied. Let me hold on just 1 second here. Hold on.
I was totally plugging it.
This is coming your way.
There it is. Tell us a little bit about that book.
I'm gonna sign it right here.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. What else you got? I got
a million of them. Oh no! Hey man, thank you, and thank you, and right back at you in terms of authenticity, because I mean, you're a guy who walks the talk, and I appreciate that about you too. So, thank you for saying that. But back to the question, Leadership Language is all about how to access leadership in a new way. And that way is a personal way. Leadership to me, and I say this in the book, and as I mentioned before, it's about service and it's about tapping into your own personal vision. And this book shows you in no uncertain terms how to do that and then bring that vision to life for others so that you can get others enrolled, get them engaged, and do it in a way that's authentic, that's not pushy, that's not salesy, that's not fake, but in a way that shares what you know you can do for others, and the things that you know that go beyond belief, beyond just positivity or mantras, or trying that sort of force of will thing that works until the day it doesn't. It's turning to the things that are the physics and engineering of our own humanity, quite frankly. And when you tap into that place, when you get where that is and how that works, it's very easy to make it work for you. And it can be a very powerful place. At least that's what I've seen it for myself and for the clients that I've worked with. And that's what I share in the book. And it's made a difference for a lot of folks. And that's the reason I wrote it.
So there's your light, your fire that keeps you going because you've seen the results, right?
Indeed.
I'll tell you also, I have a question for you. What's the toughest audience? Is it because you speak to Navy SEALs, right, that are leaving, that are being decommissioned, right?
That's right.
Getting out. So you go up to
it's up there in it's Virginia Beach.
Virginia Beach.
Yeah.
And so you got that audience, and then you got students in college, and then you've got big, corporate clients as well. But what's the toughest audience?
Probably the toughest audience, I'm going to say, was the Marine Corps Raiders. I went down to Camp Lejeune, and I mean the audience, very kind, but I mean some tough guys. I mean the best of the best, right? And the Navy SEALs are the elite as well. But these audiences, incredibly tough. They weren't hard on me. I mean, they were open actually to learn new ideas and things like that. But I have such an admiration and respect for what these guys are able to do, and helping them to transition from serving their country at the very highest level to now serving themselves, serving their employers, and serving others in civilian careers or going back into government work. That was really the nature of our conversation. But yeah, to be able to work with those folks who have, they're the best of the best. And when they invite you into that room, it's a compliment and an honor to work with those folks. Absolutely.
Yeah, I would just walk in and feel like, wow. I can imagine. So I will, which brings up an interesting point. There's a lot of people right now that would be very concerned. Well, everybody's concerned. There's a lot of uncertainty, and underneath that is fear. So do you talk about this, this monkey mind that kicks in, and the emotional aspect of things that just sort of takes over? I've heard you speak on it. I can't remember. It was a college forum. It's been a few years, but you alluded to how to address fear, because there were a lot of kids in the audience, I think, that were intimidated just in that setting of coming out and saying, raise their hand. You know what I mean? This is who I am. This is what I want to be. So right now, especially, there's some people that are losing their jobs. I know the commercial real estate world is in very uncertain times. There's some real positive things going on, but still a lot of uncertainty. And the economy in general. You saw the stock market today. How do you address that uncertainty when it comes to your business coaching and leadership? What I'm asking really is, what would you impart to someone listening to this today? And the next step in their chapter.
It seems to me, Sam, that uncertainty is all around us. And that's not just a comment on the current level of social injustice or the state of the pandemic. I'm talking about uncertainty always exists. And we try to control our calendars and manage our CRM systems in an effort to gain control over that which is not to be controlled. Life isn't like a regimented calendar. It's more like the wind or the waves on the shore. It comes at you. And the sooner folks realize this, that, I mean, if we're really looking at how the world works like this. It's uncertain. No one can predict the future. And if it looks like you can, surprise, global pandemic, surprise, unexpected job losses, maybe even a personal job loss. I know I've been through one myself on more than one occasion. So I know what that's like. But the point is that uncertainty always exists. But the leaders are the folks who say, in spite of the way things are, I move on. From a place of acceptance, which is not to say surrender or the way things are, that like, oh, a leader would stop trying to find a vaccine. That's not what I'm saying. But the only way we can find a path to the future is to get real clear about where we are now, is about accepting the way things, if you want to be an agent for change, whatever that change might be, whether it's in your own personal life, your relationships, or just helping your client to get into that office space that will really make a difference for them, you have to understand the way the world works. You have to understand that uncertainty is always going to be a part of that. And in spite of that, what are you going to do? So many times people come to me and they're like, what can I do? Give me some tips, give me some things to think about so that I can think my way through this uncertainty. And what happens is you end up giving folks more and more techniques, and you put more and more and more ideas on their mind. And when you put more on your mind, here's what you come up with. You get more on your mind. And from a place,
that's the monkey mind I was talking about.
It's the monkey mind. It's the monkey. It's when you're crazed. That's when you can't find your car keys. I mean, they're sitting on the table right here behind me. But you got so much on your mind. You're like, I can't even find my car keys. And from this place,
this fast. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead. What were you going to say?
No, it's the speed at which we're traveling too. With all 20 years ago, we didn't have the internet. It was in its inception. And now we have news in 5 seconds. We have information that comes and goes, and it's just kind of it's information overload a little bit. And then we have this quarantine fatigue that we're going to talk to psychologists coming up on the next episode about this drain that everybody sort of feels fatigued. There's a great book that I've read. It's The War of Art. Have you read this book?
I haven't.
So it's about writers, artists, specifically writers, and their challenges with just sitting down and writing, because resistance is the enemy. And that's just the breakthrough of distractions and just sitting down and doing the work.
Yeah.
That's a struggle. That's a rub, and it's real. And when you're paralyzed in the state that you're talking about right now, in the moronic mind, it's hard to make great decisions or even a decision. Mm-hmm. So my dad would always say indecisiveness is the greatest enemy, is the biggest killer. Make a decision, whatever that decision is. It may be wrong. Many of mine have been very wrong. I've made those, bad choices, career, whatever. But they've helped me. They've helped me as a building block. Like you suggested, everything in your life culminates to where you are today. And so thank you for that message of hope, and of understanding that we don't control what we think we do. When we think we get, we're putting it in neutral or driving just self-driving car. Just take off, go down the road.
I think a lot of people get lost in trying to force things to happen that are beyond their control. And I think we get lost in a lot of obligations. And what I do to the best of my ability is to try to point people towards really looking at what are those obligations and how real are they? I mean, we create a lot of dragons and ghosts and monsters in our mind, and none of those things are real. But we do, and they're fueled by the images that we see on TV. But the thing that a couple of things show up for me that I think is important to be said, and the first is a question that I would just pose to folks that are listening, watching. how big is a problem when you're not thinking about it? And for me, I would say, well, it's not a problem at all.
Yeah.
And I don't want you to think that, I'm my coaching is about helping people not to think about their problems, but to see them in a new way. That a lot of the problem is the way that we're thinking about it. In fact, that's what makes it a problem. I've had relationships, people that I couldn't stand, and then I became friends with them. Well, how did that happen? Well, the answer is I changed my thinking, changed my perspective. There were certain thoughts that I had about that person, and when I let those thoughts go, I was able to see things in a new way. And if I hang on to thoughts that keep me from being able to see things in a new way, things are never going to change. And that's what I think we have to make room for in this conversation and in every conversation that we possibly can is what is it that we can discover? What is it that's beyond what's clouding our heads? Where's that humanity that's underneath all the thinking that keeps us away from who it is that we really are? And it's hard to do that right now. It's hard. The circumstances are tough. I get it.
It is. It's we've become, especially with quarantine and isolation and things, and I think that's why everybody's busting out right now. Just I gotta go.
It's too much. I can't take it.
Well, part of that is we're not autonomous. We're social creatures. We think we want to be. We aspire to. I'm gonna be my own man. I'm gonna live by myself and have all this cool trappings, and then you realize it's very lonely. And so, how have you adapted with your coaching, for example, in this arena versus having that touch point? Has that been a challenge for you?
Sam, it hasn't been, because in the coaching conversation, it actually works as well, if not better, via Zoom. Especially because a lot of the coaching that I'm doing, if I'm working with entrepreneurs, the ability to show the pitch deck and all that kind of stuff, it's seamless. And the ability to have a conversation just like what we're having right now. There's things that you miss.
High five.
That's right. High five. That's it. You can't, it's not the same.
It's not the same. But other than that, you adapt. You don't look at it like, What
choice do we have? The future belongs to those who adapt. If you want to look at what leadership means, if you want to be more flexible or more powerful and understand the way that the world works on your adaptability. And when we get lost in our thinking and we long for what was, and we wish for a past that doesn't exist anymore, that's a great way to suffer. And that's a great way to keep ourselves trapped in an emotion that doesn't give us the freedom to discover new things. And what I found in my coaching and in my own personal life is that when I'm able to get to a place where I am thinking less, I start doing more. And even in quarantine, I'm able to be more effective, be more efficient. Why? Because I don't have so much on everything that I'm doing. I'm not sitting there going, oh, I didn't do that right. I'm just like, that's gone. That's done. Sand off a beach. I got to move forward. It's right. Like I watched a YouTube video of someone who I admire a lot. Her name's Byron Katie, and she was giving a seminar, and she's talking with this group, and she says, when someone comes up to me and slaps me across the face, and the room just goes totally quiet, like, who would slap this woman across the face? And she stops and she says, when someone slaps me across the face, all I can think of is, I'm glad that's over. And I'm like, what? But really, that's what's happening. People feel like they get slapped in the face. They get pushed around. And I'm not saying that they're not. But when we get to that place where we go, I'm glad that's over, then we can think of our next move, whether it's step back or make a fist or whatever it is you're going to do next. That's when it shows up. But when we're lost in our indignation, we're lost in I can't believe that just happened to me. Those are the thoughts that are creating a prison rather than saying, well, that's over. And
so last year, we had a tornado hit our house.
Whoa.
In November or October when the big one came through.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And this is not a testament to myself by any stretch, but having gone through that with my, wife and 4-year-old son in a 2x2 closet as it ripped through is a terrifying experience, right? Probably some PTSD. I got to step out and talk to a therapist for a second. And then you have COVID, and so all these things are sort of like, what's next? That's the part that I think, well, I'm glad that's over with. But then there's the part you can either go, thank you that that's over with, or what's next, right? Like, what's next? And then you can wake up and say, what's next? Out of my control, I have nothing to do with. The things I can control and the things is all up here.
That's where to
and
put
your
your
behavior
attention.
from there, right? Yeah. So
And
bulletproof branding. Can I talk about that for a sec?
do it. Yeah.
Tell me what a bulletproof brand is.
It's this.
That was your second book?
Yeah. The Bulletproof brand is about helping individuals and companies to understand how to convey a branding message that's not just a broadcasting message, right? It's not a book about how to tweet or what color your website should be. It's about asking yourself this question: what is the biggest promise you can keep? A brand is a promise delivered. And the promise that you make, you can broadcast that, right? You could say whatever you want. You could say, fly the friendly skies, right? And then the video shows that doctor getting punched in the mouth and pulled off a plane. So, days gone by. But bulletproof branding is about getting down to an authentic message that focuses on your promises. And how do you convey those promises? And how do you keep those promises? So that's really what bulletproof branding is about.
Nice. And it all comes around, your theme is constantly about service, serving others.
Yeah. To me, it looks like that's what life is about. It's about service. And I'd also say this, I'd be curious. I know you're interviewing me, but I'd be curious to get your take on this statement. It's also about creativity. And I don't mean creativity like arts and crafts. I mean creating things, creating opportunities, creating new developments, creating new relationships, creating new partnerships. Every day we are creating something. And for me, sometimes it comes out in books. Sometimes it shows up on Forbes. Sometimes it shows up in my relationships and with the folks here in the prison where I'm quarantined. Just kidding. I shouldn't talk about the warden like that. She'll come in here and I'll be in trouble. But, it's what is it that you are creating? And when you think about, well, what is it that I'm selling? That's one conversation. My question, if you want to look at a deeper conversation, is what is it that you are creating? I think creativity is a part of our DNA, just like, and this kind of points back to your story. So is resilience. So is resourcefulness. So is the ability to bounce back, as you've done so many times, and you've overcome a lot. I really admire what you've done. I mean, you said it wasn't a story about you, but you and I both know you've been thrown up against the fence more than once. Me too. Yeah. But here we are, still standing. Standing.
Yeah. You, some days, like you said, some days are better than others. Some days are those challenges and resistance kicks in, monkey mind kicks in. Negative thoughts kick in, negative people show up. There's a lot about attraction and what's responsible for that, and like attracts like, all that kind of stuff. But I think what it boils down to is sometimes, as Navy SEALs talk about, it's just another 5 feet. Just even if it's just go another 5 feet, and then you can do 20 times more than what you think you can do. But it's what you think you can do. And then you can, I'm a connector. You're a connector, connecting people. I know this guy. That's what the point of this story of this show is. The story of this show is, it started with the idea of the converse or the connections, relationships, friendships that I've had over 20 plus years in commercial real estate, their voice, I know, would be an influence and inspiration to somebody else who doesn't have that contact or that connection. So it's this broad connection beyond one degree of separation to just share and serve that way. And something that you've said today can hit somebody else. And for me to be a part of that and use my talents, my little studio, to be able to give platform for that end is truly, it's not a legacy. It's just what I want to be a part of.
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
so
It's not a legacy, but it might be a gift, Sam. It's not a legacy, but it might be a gift, you know, if someone finds value in it.
Yeah, you know, a lot of people I know are very not a lot of people, but I know people who get in circles of influence who rise up to the top of the tower, who are very close chest about their contacts, how they got there, their relationships. There's some, on the other hand, that are very generous with, I didn't get here by myself. Somebody helped me. Somebody gave me a word of encouragement, or they connected me with this job opportunity, this guy that may be able to help. So that's really what this is about. Do you, what would you say to somebody? I asked somebody this earlier. What would you say to the younger Chris Westfall? But what would you, I think it's maybe the same thing. But if I can rephrase that, be so bold as to ask you what you would tell your children or somebody else's son or daughter that is, you know, just starting out in their careers or in life.
Think bigger. Think bigger. There are better days ahead for all of us. I'd like to say for all of us, but I mean, pulling back, looking at it from 50,000 feet, there are better days ahead for our world. And how is it that you want to create that? What does that mean to you? If I could say one thing to myself as a younger self, I mean, if you had described my current career to me even 10 years ago, I'd have called you a liar. But you know, life is full of occurrences that have shown me that the future can be bigger than what we can imagine right here, right now, today.
I mean, some of those jobs you were talking about are that we've both had situations where you've lost a job here, or you've, you know, just whatever. And those losses in the interim seem so devastating or whatever, but they're actually a gift to where you are today. Like you said, 10 years ago, can you imagine if you had stayed a course, or if, you know, so what a gift this is. What a gift you are, Chris. So thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your words and your books. You want to give us another snapshot of your book and your website and kind of everything?
I got this book. You need a book. And if you're like, well, which one should I read first? This is the one that's the latest that I would recommend. And if you're curious, this Bulletproof Branding really looks at, and I've got it tagged because I was quoting from it for an article the other day, but this really takes a look at how corporations are creating brands that matter. So it looks at companies like Cargill and IBM and Cisco and that sort of thing. But if you're interested to find out more about me, westfallonline.com, that's my website. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Instagram. You can find me on Twitter. And you can find me on Forbes.com. I just posted today about some innovation that's happening in the airline industry. And I love the work that I do with commercial real estate clients. I've worked with Transwestern. I've worked with Hines here in Houston. I've worked with a number of different smaller companies and various real estate organizations. I'm doing a thing in Southern California, a virtual presentation next month for commercial real estate advisors there. So I love that work, and it's always focused on helping people to do what we're talking about today. tap into your humanity, find the humanity in the transaction, find the relationship that's going to lead to revenues, and do it in a way that's not manipulative, but in a way that's focused on service. That's
Awesome.
the key.
Well said, brother. I appreciate you. And we'll talk soon, everybody. Chris Westfall, watch this. All right, brother. Talk
Thanks,
to you later.
Thanks,
All right.
Sam. See ya.
Bye. And